Hey guys, tonight we drift far, far back. Beyond cities, beyond pyramids, beyond even the first footprints of humanity. Tonight we step into an age when the earth itself still feels new, when the air smells of smoke and sap, and when the horizon blurs with forests that no person will ever see. You close your eyes, and when you open them again, you are standing on a shoreline almost 250 million years ago. The world is hot, restless, alive in ways you wouldn't survive for more than a breath. Volcanic fumes sting your nose. Insects the size of dinner plates buzz past, and the sun glares down without mercy. One wrong step into the swamp, and something with scales or claws will remind you that you're soft, slow, and far too fragile for this landscape. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love for you to comment your location and the local time where you're listening right now, because somewhere, under some sky, someone else is falling asleep with these ancient echoes. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ground is still scarred from the Permian extinction, that great die-off when most life withered under heat and choking air. What you see now is a planet cautiously rebuilding itself. Ferns and conifers rise from ash, spreading green where once there was only dust. Streams carve through blackened rock, their waters carrying the first fragile signs of renewal. Life is small, cautious, but stubborn. Fish dart in rivers, amphibians croak along the edges, reptiles bask on warm stones. And here is your first mainstream fact. Scientists estimate that nearly 90% of species vanished during the Permian Triassic extinction event around 252 million years ago. The most devastating extinction in Earth's history. What comes after is nothing less than a planetary reset. The air smells heavy with resin from towering conifers, sharp and almost sweet. You place your hand on the bark, rough and ridged, a survivor's armor against heat and insects. Beneath the canopy, shadows flicker as creatures dart between roots. Some look vaguely like lizards, others like mammals in miniature, snouts twitching, eyes bright. These early synapsids, ancestors of what will one day become you, live quiet, furtive lives in burrows and leaf litter. They are clever, but small, and they share this world with bolder rulers. You hear a splash. Along the river's edge, a reptile slides into the shallows, its jaws snapping at fish that glitter like shards of silver. It looks halfway between a crocodile and a salamander, armor plating along its back. These are not yet dinosaurs. Those are still waiting in the wings, but the stage is being set. Quirky detail. In this time, dragonflies reach wingspans of over 2 feet. Imagine walking through the forest as one of these creatures hovers past, its wings beating like the sound of paper fans. To modern eyes, it looks monstrous, but here it is ordinary. A relic of oxygen-rich air that lets insects grow beyond what you could believe. The days are long, the heat intense. You lift your gaze and see the continents themselves arranged differently. There is no Atlantic, no Indian Ocean dividing the globe. All land has fused into a single supercontinent, Pangaea. Its sheer scale dominates the horizon. Vast deserts stretching farther than sight. Mountain ranges like jagged scars, coastlines thousands of miles long. When the wind sweeps across, it carries sand from one end to the other. Storms that can last weeks. Dust that coats rivers and valleys alike. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here. Paleontologists still debate how climates truly behaved across Pangaea. Was the interior a lifeless desert, too far from seas to hold rain? Or did monsoons sweep through, carving lush belts of green? The fossil record offers clues, But the full truth remains elusive, a puzzle of rocks and bones. As night falls, you realize the stars are brighter than you've ever seen. No cities, no lamps, no airplanes cross the sky. Only the Milky Way sprawling like a river of fire. Somewhere in the dark, reptiles hiss, frogs croak, insects trill. You lie back against the cool earth, the scent of pine drifting above, and you feel the Earth's pulse. It is a planet young again, shaken but resilient, quietly preparing for the creatures who will soon define its age. The Triassic dawns slowly. Small reptiles experiment with form, longer legs, quicker strides, sharper teeth. Some scurry on two legs for bursts of speed, tails balancing their runs. Others stretch into armored tanks, squat and slow but nearly invulnerable. You wander among them, unseen, feeling the tension of evolution at work. Each generation a gamble for survival. And somewhere among the ferns, unnoticed at first, a new lineage is stirring. They are not yet giants, not yet tyrants, but they are different. Hips restructured, ankles locking firm, limbs held straight beneath the body instead of sprawling to the sides. They move with a new kind of grace, light and fast, eyes sharp, minds alert. These are the first dinosaurs, though you would not yet give them that name. They are small, quick, easy to overlook. But they are seeds of an empire. You follow one through the undergrowth, a creature the size of a dog, scales dappled, claws precise. It snaps up insects, tilts its head curiously, then darts away with a flick of its tail. It does not know the weight of destiny it carries, only that it is alive, hungry, and clever. Millions of years from now, its descendants will thunder across plains and rule oceans of grass. But tonight, under Triassic stars, it is simply a survivor. The earth breathes. The forests whisper. The rivers shine. The fiery dawn has passed, and the age of dinosaurs is beginning to flicker awake. The Triassic sun rises red, spreading its warmth across Pangaea's endless expanse. You wake on a rocky ridge, the stone beneath you still warm from yesterday's heat. Before you stretches a land in transition, forests of conifers and cycads breaking up seas of desert, rivers winding like silver threads, and scattered lakes gleaming under the dry sky. The air tastes faintly metallic, rich with dust and pollen, sharper than the oxygen-rich breeze you are used to. You rub your eyes and realize you're standing in a world where the familiar rules of life are only beginning to settle. Here, the ancestors of dinosaurs are already stirring. The early Triassic was ruled by survivors of the Great Extinction, creatures that filled the empty niches left behind. But now, 230 million years ago, something new is stepping out from the shadows. You can almost hear it in the rustling of ferns, the thud of light footsteps in the undergrowth, the sudden splash of something darting into a shallow stream. Dinosaurs are still small, slender, nimble, fast. They share the land with larger, stranger reptiles, and for now, they are underdogs. But you can feel it. Their time is coming. Mainstream fact. The earliest true dinosaurs appeared in the late Triassic, around 230 million years ago. Species such as Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus were small predators, while others like Plateosaurus were early herbivores, beginning to grow in size. You crouch beside a fern thicket and see movement. Out darts an Eoraptor, no larger than a medium-sized dog. Its slender body ripples with speed, tail stiff for balance, claws sharp and delicate. It snaps up a lizard-like synapsid in its jaws, shaking it violently before swallowing it whole. Then it pauses, eyes bright, nostrils twitching, sensing your invisible presence. For a moment, you lock gazes with it. One creature of fragile flesh staring at another across 230 million years. Then it bolts, vanishing between the cycads. Quirky detail. Fossil evidence shows that some of these early dinosaurs had hollow bones, making them lighter and more agile than their sprawling reptile cousins. To imagine it, think of a skeletal framework closer to birds than to lizards. Already nature was experimenting with the design that would one day take flight. But dinosaurs are not alone. Across the ridge you hear a deeper rumble, the heavy tread of another predator. You turn and see a Postosuchus, not a dinosaur, but a fearsome cousin, a Rauisuchian. It walks upright on powerful legs, jaws lined with dagger teeth, a predator that dominates the Triassic plains. For now, dinosaurs must tread lightly, avoiding the giants that rule before them. You watch as the Postosuchus lowers its head, eyes flashing, and then lunges at something in the scrub. Dust rises, bones crunch, and silence follows. The message is clear. Survival here is not about size alone, but timing. Scholarly uncertainty lingers over this rivalry. Some paleontologists argue that dinosaurs only rose to dominance after climate shifts and extinctions cleared their competitors. Others suggest dinosaurs already held subtle advantages in metabolism and agility, slowly outcompeting rivals even before the great Triassic-Jurassic extinction. The exact balance remains unclear, a debate etched in fossil bones scattered across deserts and quarries. As you walk deeper into the forest, you notice the plants themselves are different from the modern world. Towering conifers stretch skyward, their bark scaled and rough, their cones large and resinous. Cycads with thick trunks and fern-like leaves dot the undergrowth, while ginkgos spread fans of delicate green. The air is heavy with spores, the forest floor damp with fallen needles. You brush your hand along a cycad's trunk and feel its waxy armor, built to endure heat and dryness. The world is lush, but it is also harsh, a place of resilience. By a stream, you find herds of Plateosaurus, among the first large plant-eating dinosaurs. They stand on two legs, long-necked, long-tailed, their bodies stretching over 20 feet. They move slowly through the forest, stripping leaves with delicate hands, their heads swaying as they pluck fern fronds. The ground trembles with their steps. You feel small beside them, a human speck in a world of giants being born. Mainstream fact: Plateosaurus is one of the best-known early sauropodomorphs, living in Europe around 204 million years ago. Some individuals reach 30 feet in length, making them among the largest land animals of their time. Quirky anecdote: fossil beds in Germany have yielded hundreds of Plateosaurus skeletons, some so well preserved that paleontologists call the site a dinosaur graveyard. Yet curiously, many show signs of individuals trapped in mud or quicksand-like conditions, as though entire groups were swallowed by shifting ground. Whether this was bad luck or some unknown behavior remains a mystery. The Triassic days are long and scorching, the nights cool and still. As you settle by the riverbank, you hear the calls of amphibians, the rustle of insects, the distant hiss of predators. Above, the stars blaze across a sky free of pollution, sharper and clearer than you've ever seen. You trace constellations no human culture has ever named, yet you know the same stars will one day guide sailors and dreamers. And you realize something. You are watching the rehearsal for the age of dinosaurs. The stage is set. Plants to feed them, predators to test them, climates to shape them. They are still small, still fragile, still overshadowed by their cousins. But their bones carry secrets. Hollow strength, straight legs, swift strides that will one day let them rule not just the land, but the air and sea as well. For now, you drift to sleep under conifers, lulled by the hum of Triassic insects. In the dark, the earth stirs, volcanoes rumble, rivers shift, and tiny dinosaurs creep through the ferns. The giants are not yet here, but their footsteps are coming. Faint at first, then thunderous. The rise has begun as the night sky fades, and when you open your eyes again, the Triassic has slipped away. Time bends softly, millions of years passing like the turning of a page. The air you breathe now is thicker, wetter, richer. You can smell rain before it falls, heavy with the scent of pine and fern. The earth under your feet is damp and fertile, no longer the scorched dust of Pangaea's deserts. You are standing at the dawn of the Jurassic, around 200 million years ago, when the world blossoms into a lush green stage and the dinosaurs step fully into the spotlight. You hear it before you see it. A low, thunderous rumble, rhythmic and deep, like drums in the distance. The ground trembles softly. You part the ferns and catch your first glimpse, an enormous neck swaying gently above the trees, followed by a rolling wave of massive bodies moving together. A herd of sauropods stretches across the plain, each as long as a train car, each step shaking the earth. They graze high branches you couldn't dream of reaching, pulling entire boughs down with teeth shaped like chisels. These are the true giants. The Diplodocus, the Brachiosaurus, the Apatosaurus. Creatures that will define the Jurassic Age. Mainstream fact: sauropods were the largest land animals to ever live, some exceeding 100 feet in length. Their long necks allowed them to feed on treetops that no other herbivore could reach, shaping entire ecosystems by stripping forests from above. The sight is overwhelming. You crane your neck, but still you cannot take in the full height of a Brachiosaurus, its head swaying as high as a 4-story building. Its nostrils flare, releasing a gust of warm, grassy air that washes over you. You feel as though you've stumbled into the middle of a slow-moving fleet of ships, each one alive, each one massive, each one utterly indifferent to your presence. Quirky detail. Some paleontologists speculate that when these giants moved together in herds, their footsteps created vibrations deep enough to carry across the ground for miles, like a living drumline. Imagine standing here at dusk, the earth itself humming with the resonance of hundreds of tons of muscle and bone marching together. The landscape has changed with them. The continents of Pangaea are beginning to crack apart, rifting into northern Laurasia and southern Gondwana. Oceans slip into the cracks, carving new coastlines, moistening the air. Where the Triassic was marked by deserts and harsh droughts, the Jurassic is greener, wetter, lusher. Rainforests spread, rivers swell, conifers and cycads flourish in endless growth. The air is thick with buzzing insects, croaking amphibians, and the occasional high-pitched call of something feathered darting between branches. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here. Some scientists argue that sauropods could not have raised their necks as dramatically high as popular images suggest, claiming their vertebrae limited their range of motion. Others insist their posture was flexible, allowing them to sweep through both treetops and ground-level plants. The truth may lie in between, and perhaps each species held its neck differently. As you watch, it seems plausible either way. Some stretch upward, others swing their necks sideways like cranes grazing fields of green. You walk alongside a herd of Diplodocus. Their tails stretch impossibly long, like whips dragging through the ferns. One swings slightly, the tip cracking the air with a sharp snap. It startles you, because it doesn't just sound like a whip. It is a whip. Some researchers believe these tails could move fast enough to break the sound barrier, creating sonic booms that carried across the plains. Whether for defense, communication, or courtship, the sound would have echoed like thunderclaps rolling out of the bodies of giants. Nearby, another drama unfolds. Predators stalk these massive herds, You notice shadows moving at the forest's edge. Sleek, muscular hunters with jaws lined with serrated teeth. An Allosaurus, perhaps the most feared predator of the Jurassic, steps into view. It is huge, but not sauropod huge. 40 feet long, strong enough to bring down almost anything smaller, clever enough to attack in groups. It lowers its head, eyeing the herd. You tense, but the sauropods barely notice. One sweep of a tail could shatter the hunter's bones. The predator hesitates, then melts back into the trees, perhaps waiting for a weaker target, perhaps unwilling to test a giant today. Mainstream fact. Allosaurus was indeed one of the top predators of the Jurassic, and fossils show evidence of injuries on sauropods that may have been caused by attacks from such hunters. The forest holds more wonders. As you step under the canopy, the air cools and shadows deepen. Strange creatures rustle above. Primitive birds, still half reptile, half flight. You glimpse Archaeopteryx, its feathered wings stretched as it glides between branches, feathers shimmering faintly in shafts of sunlight. Its claws grasp bark, its beak snaps at insects, and then it takes to the air again. More flutter than flight. Quirky anecdote. The first fossil of Archaeopteryx was discovered in Germany in 1861, with feathers so clearly preserved in stone that it stunned scientists. At the time, it provided one of the first concrete links between dinosaurs and birds. But here, in the Jurassic forest, there is nothing surprising. Only the natural blending of scale and feather, claw and wing. The air is alive with sound. Had you lived here, your ears would never know silence. The calls of sauropods rumble like distant horns. The screeches of pterosaurs cut through the sky. The buzzing of cicada-like insects forms a constant drone. Somewhere nearby, frogs croak in the shallows of a pond. The atmosphere is thick, almost musical. An orchestra of ancient voices playing across the green stage. Scholarly uncertainty touches even these sounds. Some paleontologists wonder how dinosaurs vocalized. Did they roar like Hollywood imagines? Or did their sounds resemble low rumbles, bird-like calls, or even resonant booms made through hollow crests and chambers? You strain your ears, but the answer is lost in the chorus, impossible to separate. As night falls, you settle on a soft bed of ferns. Fireflies, or what pass for their ancestors, blink faintly in the dark. Above, the stars are veiled by mist, the air heavy with humidity. You hear the herd shifting, tails swaying, necks creaking as they graze even in the dim light. Predators call faintly in the distance, answered by the deeper rumbles of giants. You close your eyes and feel the Jurassic earth beneath you. Fertile, alive, overflowing with creatures of every shape and size. The rise of dinosaurs is no longer tentative. They are now the architects of the land, reshaping forests, rivers, even the air itself with their sheer presence. You are small, fragile, and fleeting in their world, but you are also witness to their awakening, their great unfurling. And as you drift into sleep, the last sound you hear is the low, resonant call of a sauropod, echoing across the night, like the deep breath of the planet itself. The morning light filters through mist, pale gold on the treetops. And when you lift your gaze this time, you see not necks swaying among conifers, not tails sweeping through ferns, but wings. The sky itself has filled with life. Shapes spiral overhead, some slender and graceful, others vast and leathery, their wings catching the thermals rising from warm Jurassic Earth. You are stepping into a world where the air has its kings, pterosaurs, the first vertebrates to conquer the sky. A shadow passes across your face. You look up and see one wheel above you, its wings stretched in a perfect triangle, its head long and narrow, jaws lined with sharp teeth. With a shriek that rattles your bones, it tucks its wings, plummets and snatches a fish from a shallow pool. With barely a beat of effort, it rises again, droplets streaming from its jaws, vanishing into the brightness. Mainstream fact: pterosaurs appeared in the late Triassic around 228 million years ago and flourished through the Jurassic and Cretaceous until their extinction 66 million years ago. They were not dinosaurs, but close relatives, evolving powered flight millions of years before birds. You follow their flight patterns with awe. Some glide low over rivers, their wings brushing the surface like skaters on ice. Others soar higher than hawks, letting the rising heat carry them without effort. Their wingspans vary wildly. Some no larger than a crow, others stretching longer than a bus. The air is alive with their presence, every gust of wind carrying them to new heights. Quirky detail: fossil impressions reveal that many pterosaurs had fur-like coverings, called pycnofibers, giving them insulation and perhaps even color. Imagine these so-called leathery beasts, instead patterned in soft fuzz. Striped, mottled, maybe even bright. Some scientists suggest vivid crests and colorful wings may have dazzled mates or intimidated rivals, turning the Jurassic sky into a carnival of patterns. You hear a chorus of shrieks as a group of smaller pterosaurs gather on a cliffside. They hop along the rocks, wings folded, moving awkwardly, but with purpose. Then, as though in unison, they leap and unfold, catching the wind in a perfect rhythm. They spiral together, banking and weaving in aerial dances. To your modern eyes, it resembles a flock of gulls, but sharper, stranger, more alien. Their cries echo off the cliffs, a wild chorus above the distant rumbles of sauropod herds below. And yet, as graceful as they are, their world is not secure. You spot another shape circling higher, massive and slow, its wingspan easily 30 feet. Its long, toothless beak curves downward, its crest rising like a blade from its skull. It is a giant pterosaur, perhaps Pteranodon, surveying the sea below. With a sudden tilt of its wings, it dives, skimming the waves, beak plunging into the surf. It emerges with a fish wriggling helplessly, a silver flash against the deep blue. Mainstream fact: Pteranodon lived during the late Cretaceous, with wingspans often over 20 feet. Unlike many earlier pterosaurs, it had no teeth, instead using its long beak to snatch fish from the ocean surface. Scholarly uncertainty lingers about how exactly these giants lived. Did they soar like albatrosses, gliding for days across oceans? Or did they perch and hunt more locally? Some evidence suggests they were masters of dynamic soaring, using wind currents over waves just as seabirds do today. Others argue they may have been clumsier, dependent on land and sea edges for food. The truth is still written only in bones and rocks, never in direct sight. As you walk toward the shoreline, the air thickens with wings. Dozens of pterosaurs line the beaches, some wading into shallow surf on long, stilt-like legs, others resting awkwardly on sand, wings folded like sails collapsed after a voyage. They squabble over fish, snapping beaks, flapping wings to shove rivals aside. A few spread their wings and run clumsily before catching air, their takeoff ungainly, but their flight magnificent. You feel the spray of seawater as one lifts off, its shadow sweeping across you like a living kite. Quirky anecdote: some pterosaurs had elaborate head crests, ridges, sails, even bizarre, oversized structures taller than their skulls. Scientists still puzzle over their purpose. Were they for display, like a peacock's tail, for steering in flight? Or were they simply features of sexual dimorphism, the prehistoric version of flashy haircuts? You imagine entire flocks where no two crests look alike. The sky filled with brilliant, showy silhouettes. And above them all, in the late Cretaceous skies, rule the Ajdarchids, Pterosaurs so enormous they defy belief. Quetzalcoatlus, with a wingspan up to 35 feet, stalks not only skies, but land as well. You shiver as you picture one striding across a plain on long, stork-like legs, snapping up small dinosaurs whole. When it leaps into the air, wings stretching wider than your living room, it becomes the largest flying animal to ever live. A shadow cast across entire valleys. Mainstream fact. Quetzalcoatlus and its relatives indeed stood as tall as giraffes on land and soared as giants in the sky. Their exact hunting methods remain debated, but many believe they were opportunistic predators and scavengers, stalking like giant herons. Scholarly uncertainty still surrounds how creatures so massive launched into flight. Did they leap with powerful forelimbs, vaulting skyward? Did they need slopes or strong winds? Modern engineers run simulations, but none can fully explain the miracle of these airborne titans. As you tilt your head back, imagining one blotting out the sun, you realize the mystery itself makes them even more astonishing. The night comes gently, the sea glowing faintly with bioluminescent plankton, the horizon still dotted with wings catching the last thermals of the day. Pterosaurs wheel in slow arcs, their silhouettes black against a violet sky. On the cliffs, they roost awkwardly, folding wings, settling into huddled groups. Their cries soften, replaced by the steady rhythm of waves. You lie on the sand, the air warm and heavy, the scent of salt clinging to you. Above, stars emerge between wings, bright pinpricks beyond the dark shapes drifting slowly across the heavens. And you think of how, long before humans dreamed of flight, long before feathers became airplanes, these creatures had already claimed the skies. For millions of years, the earth belonged to dinosaurs, the seas to reptiles. But the sky, it belonged to the kings of air, leathery and majestic, soaring through deep time. And as your eyes grow heavy, you hear a final shriek overhead, fading into the night, like the echo of a dream that refuses to land. The waves lap softly against your ankles. Behind you, the cries of pterosaurs fade, replaced by the rhythm of water rolling endlessly to shore. You look out at the horizon, blue stretching forever, broken only by the faint shimmer of sunlight. Then, as though the sea has taken a deep breath, you step forward, and the world shifts. You are beneath the surface now, drifting slowly, weightless, in oceans ruled not by dinosaurs, but by hunters of an older, deeper kind. The water is clear, filled with shafts of light, filtering down like golden ribbons. Schools of fish flash silver as they turn in unison, their bodies glinting like a single living mirror. Jellyfish pulse slowly, their translucent bells trailing threads like silk scarves. You reach out and almost touch one, but it drifts just beyond your fingers, glowing faintly, ghost-like in the water. And then, movement in the distance. At first it looks like a shadow, long and sleek, moving with impossible grace. It grows larger, sharper, until you see its true form, an ichthyosaur. Its body is shaped like a dolphin, but its eyes are enormous, each as wide as a dinner plate. It flicks its tail and shoots forward like a torpedo, scattering fish in every direction. With a snap of its jaws, it swallows a handful, then arcs gracefully upward, breaking the surface in a spray of foam before diving again. Mainstream fact. Ichthyosaurs were marine reptiles that dominated the oceans during the Triassic and Jurassic periods. Some species grew over 60 feet long, and their huge eyes suggest they hunted even in deep, dim waters. You float silently as another approaches. This one carries scars along its flank, pale lines where some ancient rival's teeth once raked across its body. It circles you, its great eye unblinking, then glides past, vanishing into the blue as swiftly as it appeared. The ocean feels alive with their presence. Unseen shapes moving always, just beyond reach. Quirky detail. Fossilized ichthyosaurs have been found with preserved embryos inside. Proof that they gave live birth in the water rather than laying eggs on land. One fossil even shows a baby frozen mid-birth, its tiny body still half inside its mother. A moment of life and death preserved for 180 million years. You imagine drifting across these seas and perhaps catching sight of such a birth. Tiny ichthyosaurs slipping into the water, already swimming, already ready to hunt. But the ichthyosaurs are not alone. The seas are crowded with predators. From the murk rises a plesiosaur, its neck impossibly long, stretching like a serpent from a broad, round body. Its flippers beat rhythmically, carrying it with slow majesty. But its head darts suddenly forward, with jaws snapping at a fish. You feel a chill as its eyes turn toward you, as though measuring whether you might fit between its teeth. It moves past, elegant and strange, its long neck weaving through the water like a snake through grass. Mainstream fact: plesiosaurs lived from the late Triassic to the end of the Cretaceous. With long necks and paddle-like flippers, they were among the most iconic marine reptiles, inspiring sea serpent myths long after their extinction. Scholarly uncertainty haunts their hunting style. Did they use their long necks like fishing rods, striking quickly at schools of fish while keeping their bulky bodies hidden? Or did they move more like swans, sweeping through the water with necks curved gracefully? Some even suggest the neck was more for display or combat than hunting. You watch as one glides by, and no single answer seems right. It could be all of these, or something you cannot imagine. Deeper still, you sense something larger. A shadow slides across the ocean floor. You turn slowly, and your breath catches. A mosasaur. Its body is massive, serpentine with jaws longer than you are tall. It swims with smooth, powerful strokes of its tail, propelling itself like a crocodile reborn for the sea. Its head turns, mouth opening just slightly, revealing rows of conical teeth. The water vibrates with its passing, a living submarine cutting through time. Mainstream fact: mosasaurs were apex predators of the late Cretaceous, reaching lengths of more than 50 feet. They are closer in relation to modern lizards and snakes than to other marine reptiles. Quirky anecdote: fossil evidence shows that some mosasaurs swallowed ammonites, spiral-shelled relatives of squid and octopuses, whole. Their stomachs reveal crushed shells, as if these monsters casually gulped armored prey without concern. You picture it now. A mosasaur tilting back its head, swallowing an ammonite in a single gulp. Its spiral shell crunching inside those terrible jaws. Schools of ammonites swirl around you, their coiled shells shining faintly in the dim light. They move like living spirals, tentacles probing, shells glittering with mother of pearl. To ancient sailors millions of years later, their fossilized remains will look like petrified snakes curled into stone, giving rise to legends. But here they are alive, pulsing with color, drifting as they have for ages. The ocean is a world of layers. Near the surface, sunlight sparkles on waves, feeding plankton and fish. Deeper down, shadows stretch, and only the largest hunters thrive. Below that, in the blackness, creatures glow faintly with their own light, early bioluminescence, flickers of blue and green in the dark. You sink into this twilight, hearing only the slow beating of your heart, feeling the weight of ancient water pressing against you. Scholarly uncertainty surrounds these depths. How far did ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs dive? Could they plunge like modern whales, hunting in darkness? Their enormous eyes suggest they could, but direct evidence is rare. As you drift downward, you see why the question matters. The deep is not empty, but alive. with strange alien forms pulsing gently in the dark. Perhaps those great eyes once peered at the same glowing creatures now surrounding you, and then you hear it. A low boom, distant but powerful. The ocean floor trembles. Volcanic rifts along Pangaea's breaking seams release fire and ash into the sea, reshaping coastlines, poisoning waters, driving migrations. Life here is not peaceful. It is a balance of chaos and persistence. The earth below and the predators above both demand survival. You rise slowly, breaking through waves again. The sun blinds you for a moment. All around, pterosaurs skim the surface, diving for fish. A plesiosaur's head bursts up, water cascading down its long neck. Farther out, a mosasaur breaches, its massive body twisting, spray exploding like fireworks. For an instant, the air and sea blur, the rulers of water and sky sharing the same stage. You lie back, floating, the waves lifting you gently. The ocean hums with life, every current carrying the presence of hunters older, stranger, and more powerful than anything humanity will ever know. This is their world, their empire, and you are only a drifting guest, rocked to sleep by ancient tides. The forests hush. You can feel it in your chest before you hear it, the way the birds, or what passes for them now, suddenly go silent. The insects pause their buzzing. The air is thick, the heat pressing down, and something is moving nearby. You crouch low among the cycads and ferns, heart quickening as the shadows lengthen. The Jurassic belongs to giants, but it is ruled by predators. Tonight, you walk among them, a rustle, a snap of a branch. Then, stepping into a clearing, it appears Allosaurus. It is not as large as the Tyrannosaurus that will one day haunt the Cretaceous. But here, in the Jurassic, it is king. 30 feet of muscle and bone, jaws lined with serrated teeth, arms short but armed with claws sharp as scythes. Its head swings slowly, eyes scanning, nostrils tasting the air. The herd of sauropods in the distance grumble uneasily, their tails twitching. But the Allosaurus is patient. It does not rush. It stalks. Mainstream fact. Allosaurus was indeed one of the apex predators of the late Jurassic, especially in North America. Fossils suggest it was abundant, with more remains found than almost any other large carnivorous dinosaur of its era. You wouldn't survive under that gaze. Even crouched and hidden, you feel its attention sweep over you like a searchlight. For a moment it pauses, head cocked, as though listening to the pounding of your heart. Then it moves on, stalking through the undergrowth with surprising silence for something so large. Only the occasional snap of brush betrays its passing. Quirky detail. Some paleontologists believe Allosaurus had a hunting strategy different from later tyrannosaurs. Its jaw joints were unusually flexible, allowing it to open its mouth wider, like a great reptilian buzzsaw. One theory suggests it attacked by slashing downward with its upper jaws, almost like a hatchet, tearing through flesh with repeated blows. Imagine standing in that clearing as it tested this strike on a young sauropod. The sheer violence disguised beneath such elegant movements. The forest holds other predators too. In the underbrush, smaller hunters prowl in packs. You spot Ceratosaurus, shorter and stockier, with a horn jutting from its snout. It moves differently, more crocodilian in gait, and when it lunges at fish in the river, the water explodes with silver arcs. Its horn glistens, catching sunlight, a strange ornament whose purpose remains debated. Scholarly uncertainty. Was the horn of Ceratosaurus used for combat, for display, or for something stranger still? Fossils show no clear answer. You imagine two of them circling each other in the shallows, jaws snapping, horns clashing with hollow thuds, while pterosaurs screech overhead. Whether those battles truly happened or not is lost to time. You walk out into a floodplain where herds of Stegosaurus graze among low plants, tails bristling with deadly spikes. They are slow, deliberate, their plates glowing faintly orange in the evening sun. But the predators watch them closely. A group of Allosaurus lurks nearby, circling, testing, waiting for one to falter. The Stegosaurus stamp the ground, tails whipping like maces. One false move and a predator could be gutted. Yet the hunters are relentless. Shadows pacing the edge of the herd. Mainstream fact. Fossil evidence shows puncture wounds in Allosaurus bones that match the tail spikes of Stegosaurus. Proof that predator and prey clashed violently. Some Allosaurus lived long enough for those wounds to partially heal, suggesting they often survived brutal injuries. Quirky anecdote. One famous fossil skeleton, nicknamed Big Al, revealed dozens of injuries, broken ribs, infected bones, arthritis, that the animal somehow survived. To walk in its footsteps would be to see a predator limping but still hunting, scarred but alive, the embodiment of survival against all odds. Night falls, and the predators do not sleep. You hear them in the dark, low growls, echoing calls, footsteps crunching softly on leaf litter. The stars shimmer above, but on the ground, shadows move with deadly precision. Smaller theropods dart between trees, their eyes catching starlight, flashing briefly as they pass. Insects trill, frogs croak, but it is the silence between sounds that makes you shiver. You know something is always watching. Scholarly uncertainty hovers in the air like mist. Did these predators hunt in coordinated packs, like wolves? Or were they solitary opportunists? Evidence of multiple Allosaurus at fossil sites suggests some level of group activity. But whether it was cooperation or mere coincidence, several predators drawn to the same carcass remains unclear. You imagine both. A lone hunter stalking silently, and elsewhere a group of 3 or 4 circling, eyes gleaming, each waiting for the other to make the first move. You rest against a fallen log, trying to slow your breath. The forest around you hums with tension. Suddenly, a shriek cuts the air. A young sauropod, separated from its herd, caught in the grasp of jaws. The sound is sharp, heartbreaking, but brief. You close your eyes, hearing the crash of bodies in the undergrowth, the snapping of branches, the sudden silence that follows. When you open them again, the forest is calm, but the ground nearby is disturbed. Ferns crushed flat, the faint metallic tang of blood hanging in the air. This is the reign of predators. Not constant chaos, but the steady rhythm of hunt and survive. The balance that keeps the Jurassic in motion. Every giant herd, every strange herbivore, every towering sauropod, each lives under the shadow of sharp teeth and patient eyes. By dawn, the forest seems peaceful again. The sun cuts through mist, birds flutter overhead, and the great herds resume their grazing. But you know now that peace is only the surface. Beneath it runs the eternal vigilance of predators, rulers not of size but of silence, timing, and hunger. And as you drift to sleep against the warm log, you feel the ground tremble faintly once more. Perhaps it is only your imagination, or perhaps another Allosaurus passes in the distance, jaws opening wide, searching for its next meal. The air smells different now, softer, sweeter. Where once the world was dominated by the sharp resin scent of conifers and the heavy spice of cycads, a new fragrance begins to creep across the landscape. You inhale deeply, and though you can't quite name it, you know it. The smell of flowers. It is the Cretaceous, and life is about to bloom in ways no eye, human or dinosaur, has ever seen before. You walk across a plain dotted with cycads, the old guard of the plant world, their thick trunks capped with palm-like fronds. Beyond them stand towering conifers, straight as cathedral pillars, their cones heavy with seeds. These are familiar smells, the same resinous notes that filled the Jurassic. But now, nestled among them, you see something new. Small shrubs with delicate petals, bright against the green. A scatter of blossoms, pinks and yellows, opening to the morning light. Mainstream fact: flowering plants, known as angiosperms, first appeared during the early Cretaceous, around 130 million years ago. Within tens of millions of years, they spread rapidly, transforming ecosystems across the globe. At first glance, they seem fragile, so small compared to cycads, so easily crushed under the footsteps of a wandering iguanodon. Yet there is power in their design. Flowers use insects, birds, even small reptiles to spread pollen, ensuring their survival in ways ferns and conifers never mastered. Each blossom is a beacon, a lure, a promise of sweetness. Quirky detail: some of the earliest known flowers were tiny, no bigger than your fingernail. Fossils show blossoms only a few millimeters across, almost invisible among leaves. Yet these miniature pioneers paved the way for the roses, lilies, and sunflowers you know today. Imagine walking here, bending low, and noticing a single blossom no larger than a pinhead. The beginning of a revolution. You follow a humming sound and find an insect hovering near a bloom. Its wings blur, its body striped. Not quite a bee as you'd know it, but something similar. A wasp-like insect drawn to nectar. It lands clumsily, dusting itself with pollen, then lifts off, carrying the future from one flower to the next. You smile faintly at the thought that without this tiny flyer, no blossoms would spread, no fruits would grow, no seeds would scatter. Dinosaurs may dominate the land, but insects are shaping its destiny. Scholarly uncertainty surrounds the exact origins of flowering plants. Did they evolve suddenly, exploding across landscapes in what Darwin called an abominable mystery? Or were they present long before, hidden and rare, their fossils too delicate to leave traces? Paleobotanists still argue, piecing together fragments of pollen and petals, yet the full story remains veiled in green mystery. You stroll into a valley where hadrosaurs graze among low shrubs. Their wide beaks sweep across patches of flowering plants, cropping leaves and stems. One raises its head, a crest glowing in the sunlight, and bellows across the plain. The call echoes, deep and resonant, answered by another across the valley. For them, flowers are not beauty but food, soft, nutritious, easy to digest. Their guts, vast fermentation chambers, turn blossoms into muscle and bone. Mainstream fact: the rise of flowering plants coincided with the diversification of herbivorous dinosaurs, especially hadrosaurs and ceratopsians, whose jaws and teeth adapted to grind these new foods. Quirky anecdote: fossilized dinosaur droppings, called coprolites, sometimes contain pollen grains, proof that even the mightiest creatures of the Cretaceous consumed flowers. Imagine kneeling over such a fossilized heap, brushing away dust, and finding specks of ancient pollen still clinging after 70 million years. The world brightens with color. Once, landscapes were muted. Greens, browns, the occasional rust of fern spores. Now, blossoms spread across plains, riversides, and forests, painting the earth in reds, purples, yellows. You kneel and brush your fingers along a petal. It is delicate, translucent, its veins catching the sun. You realize you are touching a moment of quiet revolution. The planet learning to bloom. Even the sky seems to notice. Primitive birds flutter among branches, their feathers catching sunlight. One dips low, attracted by a flower's nectar, probing with its beak. It lifts its head, pollen dusting its face, then darts away. Flowers and feathers, two revolutions intertwining, each shaping the other. The world hums with change, subtle yet unstoppable. Scholarly uncertainty lingers in the insects themselves. Were bees already present in the Cretaceous, or did wasps fill the role first? Fossil amber shows both possibilities. Tiny bodies frozen mid-flight, pollen grains still clinging to their legs. You hold a piece of such amber up to the sun, watching golden light pour through, trapping forever the partnership of insect and bloom. You walk until dusk. The air cools, and the flowers close their petals gently, folding against the night. Hadrosaurs drift back into herds, stegosaurs rustle through the ferns, and somewhere, a Tyrannosaurus roars faintly across the hills. Even here, in a world still ruled by teeth and claws, flowers hold their ground. Quiet, persistent, patient. Lying down beneath a conifer, you breathe deeply. The scent of blossoms mixes with pine resin, a fragrance both ancient and new. You feel the earth shift beneath you, not violently, but with the slow, steady change of evolution. The giants may rule today, but the future belongs to the flowers. The ground trembles beneath your feet, not with the sweeping rumble of sauropod herds, but with something heavier, lower, almost metallic in its resonance. You push through a thicket of ferns and step into a clearing, and there they are, the armored titans. The sun glints off backs covered not in smooth scales, but in shields, plates, and spikes. These are the dinosaurs that turned their own bodies into castles. They move with deliberate weight, each step pressing deep prints into soft earth. Their tails swaying like clubs, their flanks bristling with bone. Mainstream fact: stegosaurs, ankylosaurs, and ceratopsians are some of the most famous armored dinosaurs, each evolving unique forms of defense during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Their armor wasn't just protection, it reshaped ecosystems by forcing predators to adapt or fail. Ahead, a stegosaurus grazes among low cycads. Its back rises into two rows of tall plates, their edges glowing orange in the afternoon sun. Some stand taller than you, curved like sails, spaced in alternating pairs. Its head is low, sweeping leaves into its mouth, but its tail is lifted slightly, spikes poised like spears. You watch it swat flies with a lazy flick, but you can imagine those same spikes driving deep into the flank of an Allosaurus. Quirky detail. Fossil evidence suggests the plates of Stegosaurus were filled with blood vessels, meaning they may have flushed with color. Imagine them turning bright red during courtship displays or confrontations, like living billboards glowing across Jurassic floodplains. A lumbering herbivore, yes, but also one capable of flashing signals as vivid as any neon sign. Scholarly uncertainty lingers. Were those plates for defense, thermoregulation, or display? Some paleontologists believe they helped shed heat, others that they intimidated predators, still others that they attracted mates. Standing here, watching the plates flicker in the sun, you realize the answer may be all of the above. Nature rarely chooses one reason when many will do. You continue along a ridge and hear a different sound. Low thuds, heavy dragging tails. A herd of ankylosaurs comes into view. They look like living tanks, their bodies covered in bony armor called osteoderms, fused into plates that cover their backs and flanks. Their heads are low, faces blunt, eyes peering out beneath ridges of bone. And behind them, swaying slowly, are tails tipped with massive clubs, each swing heavy enough to shatter bone. Mainstream fact: Ankylosaurs lived during the Cretaceous and carried tail clubs that could deliver devastating blows. Simulations suggest a strong strike could break the legs of predators like Tyrannosaurus Rex. You kneel and watch one swing its tail experimentally, cracking against a fallen log. The wood splinters with a sharp report echoing through the valley. You flinch at the thought of standing on the wrong side of such power. The ankylosaur snorts softly, unconcerned, then returns to grazing. Quirky anecdote. Fossils show ankylosaurs sometimes bore healed injuries on their armor plates, as if they had survived brutal encounters. Imagine one lumbering away from a fight with scars across its back, still carrying the indestructible calm of a walking fortress. Predators linger nearby, of course. A pair of Tyrannosaurus circle at a distance, testing, watching. They lunge once, jaws snapping, but the ankylosaurs close ranks, tails raised in warning. The predators hesitate. One wrong step, one broken shin, and the hunter becomes the hunted. Frustrated, they back away, roaring into the evening sky. The next day, you follow a river into an open plain. Dust rises under your feet, and in the distance, horns glint. As you draw closer, you see them, ceratopsians. Herds stretch across the horizon, each creature armed with a massive skull shield, frills sweeping backward, horns jutting forward. Some have single horns above their noses, others three, still others elaborate crowns of spikes and hooks. They graze together, low to the ground, but always in motion, always wary. Mainstream fact: the most famous ceratopsian, Triceratops, grew nearly 30 feet long, with a skull that could span over 7 feet. Its horns and frill made it one of the most iconic dinosaurs of all time. Quirky detail. Some ceratopsians had frills so thin in places that light may have shone through them. Picture a herd at dawn, their frills glowing softly as the rising sun filtered through. A natural stained glass procession moving across the plains. Scholarly uncertainty clouds their purpose. Were the frills used purely for defense? Or were they displays, signals to mates, warnings to rivals? Some even suggest they supported bright colors or patterns, turning the herd into a living gallery of prehistoric art. You gaze at the sweeping frills and can imagine all three possibilities: shields, flags, and paintings combined. The herd suddenly shifts, restless. From the tree line emerges a predator, Tyrannosaurus Rex. It steps slowly, massive jaws opening in a roar that rolls like thunder across the plain. The ceratopsians snort, stomp, form a wall of horns. The T-Rex charges, jaws snapping, but meets a storm of horns in reply. Dust rises, screams echo, the ground shakes. You can't tell who wins, but you see blood on the frill of one Triceratops and deep gashes on the flank of the predator. Neither emerges unscathed. Night settles, and the armored titans rest in their own ways. Stegosaurus lies low under cycads, its plates dim in moonlight. Ankylosaurs huddle together, their tails curled protectively. Ceratopsians form tight rings, frills overlapping, horns outward, a fortress of living shields. Around them, the world whispers with predators, but none dare step closer. You lie down nearby, the scent of earth and crushed flowers around you. Above, the stars shimmer, reflected faintly on the plates, frills, and armor. These creatures carry the night sky on their backs, constellations of bone and horn. And as your eyes close, you realize that in this world, survival isn't just about speed or size. Sometimes it is about endurance, about carrying your defenses with you wherever you go. The armored titans may not look graceful, but they endure. And in endurance lies a different kind of rain. The night fades, and dawn spills softly across the plains. The mist clings to the ground, rolling like smoke between stands of ginkgo trees and flowering shrubs. You hear them before you see them. Deep, resonant calls, like the notes of distant horns echoing across the valley. The sound rolls over you, vibrating in your chest, both eerie and beautiful. You push through the foliage, and there they are. Hadrosaurs. The duck-billed dinosaurs, with wide, flat mouths and sweeping crests that rise from their skulls like instruments. They graze in herds, stretching as far as you can see, their bodies swaying gently as they feed, their tails flicking in rhythm with their slow movements. And always, their voices hum, calls rising and falling like a prehistoric symphony. Mainstream fact: hadrosaurs were among the most common dinosaurs of the late Cretaceous, and many species had hollow crests connected to their nasal passages. These acted like natural resonating chambers, producing low, booming calls that carried for miles. You crouch near a group of Parasaurolophus, their crests long and backward curving like trumpets grown from bone. One lifts its head, air shuddering through the crest, and the sound that follows is haunting. Part foghorn, part flute, a note that seems to go on forever. Another answers, then another, until the plain is alive with overlapping tones, a chorus of giants speaking across distance. Quirky detail: some scientists once compared these calls to the sound of trombones. You smile faintly at the image, an entire herd of dinosaurs honking like an orchestra warming up. But here, standing among them, the sound is deeper, more powerful. It is not comic, it is majestic. A music that seems to vibrate the earth itself. Scholarly uncertainty surrounds the purpose of these crests. Were they for communication, mating displays, or species recognition? Did each call carry specific meanings? Warnings, greetings, lullabies for young? Fossil reconstructions of nasal passages suggest the crests produced unique frequencies. But the language remains unknown. You listen closely, trying to imagine the meaning. Is that long, drawn-out note a warning of predators? Or a mother calling to her calf? The herd moves slowly toward a riverbank, their broad beaks sweeping up leaves and stems, their teeth grinding relentlessly. Unlike the sharp, scissor-like teeth of carnivores, hadrosaurs carry hundreds of tiny, interlocking teeth, stacked in rows, forming a grinding surface perfect for shredding plants. You kneel and hear the steady crunch-crunch, a sound like millstones grinding grain. Mainstream fact: hadrosaurs had some of the most complex chewing systems of any dinosaur. Their teeth were continually replaced, with some species carrying over 1,000 teeth at a time. As they feed, the younger hadrosaurs play nearby, splashing in the shallows, chasing each other in circles. Their calls are higher-pitched, squeakier, like the piping of flutes beside the booming tubas of adults. Parents glance up occasionally, answering with softer notes, reassurance carried on sound. Quirky anecdote: fossilized skin impressions from hadrosaurs show scales patterned in intricate mosaics, some even suggesting faint striping. Imagine a herd not only humming like an orchestra, but shimmering with subtle patterns of light and shade as they move together. The calls rise suddenly, sharper now. The herd shifts uneasily, and you sense why. From the forest edge emerges a predator, Daspletosaurus, a cousin of Tyrannosaurus. Its jaws glint, its eyes narrow, and it steps forward with slow confidence. The herd tightens, adults circling the young, calls booming louder, overlapping into a wall of sound. The predator hesitates. The calls are not just noise. They are power, unity, a thunder that fills the valley. The Daspletosaurus snarls, snaps once at the edge of the herd, then turns away, melting back into trees. The hadrosaurs calm, their calls softening into low murmurs again. You feel your chest loosen, realizing you had held your breath through the entire encounter. Scholarly uncertainty lingers here as well. Could sound itself have been a defense? Some argue the sheer volume of hadrosaur calls might have disoriented predators or discouraged them from approaching. Others suggest it was purely communication, the defense lying in numbers and size. Watching the herd now, you sense the truth might be both. The sound is not just a language, but a weapon of presence. As the day warms, you climb a ridge overlooking the plain. Below, the hadrosaurs move like a living river, bodies swaying, tails flicking, voices blending into a single song. Flowers dot the fields, their colors bright against the green, and insects drift between blossoms. Birds dart overhead, their chirps faint against the deeper calls below. The entire landscape feels alive with sound, layered and endless. Close your eyes and listen. The earth hums with music older than humanity, carried not by instruments, but by lungs, bones, and hollow crests. Each note is a thread tying creatures together, weaving herds into families, plains into choirs. It is not random. It is a symphony of survival, each call both a heartbeat and a shield. Night settles slowly. The calls soften into lullabies, low rumbles rolling across the plain. The calves huddle close to adults, their squeaks fading into sleep. The stars brighten overhead, mirrored faintly in the river below. And still, even in darkness, the calls continue. A soft hum, a reassurance, a reminder that even in the shadow of predators, the herd endures. You lie down among tall grasses, your body vibrating faintly with every note that passes through the air. The sounds wrap around you like a blanket, soothing, steady, timeless. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you realize you are drifting to sleep in the middle of an ancient concert. The last sound in your ears, the low, resonant hum of dinosaurs singing to each other across the Cretaceous night. The morning light returns, soft and pale. But something feels different. The world has begun to shimmer with new textures, subtle yet profound. Where once the air was filled with leathery hides, scales, and horns, now you notice something lighter, softer, almost delicate, drifting in the breeze. You lean closer, and it catches on your fingertip. A feather. You glance upward, expecting a bird. Instead, from the undergrowth, a small dinosaur darts across your path. It is not covered in scales, but in wisps of down, feather-like filaments sprouting across its body. Its tail sways, fringed in veins. Its claws dig into the soil, but when it pauses and lifts its head, you see its arms. 4 limbs lined with primitive feathers, half flaps, half fingers. It chirps a sound more bird than reptile, then vanishes again into the brush. Mainstream fact: fossil discoveries in China's Liaoning province show that many theropod dinosaurs, including relatives of Velociraptor, were covered in feathers. These were not just birds, but true dinosaurs, blurring the line between categories once thought distinct. You follow into the thicket, brushing aside leaves. More appear, small raptors with plumage flashing iridescent in sunlight. They leap after insects, their feathers flicking in bursts of color, some patterned like camouflage, others glowing like jewels. The forest feels alive with rustling wings, not of birds, but of creatures halfway between lizard and sparrow. Quirky detail. Some of these early feathers may have been brightly colored, used for display rather than flight. Imagine a forest where dinosaurs wore plumage like peacocks, vibrant reds and blues catching light as they danced or fought. A Cretaceous jungle parade hidden in the shadows of giants. Scholarly uncertainty clings to the air like mist. Did feathers evolve first for warmth, for display, or as aids in gliding? Fossil imprints suggest insulation was their earliest role, but the leap to flight remains debated. Standing here, you see all possibilities. A chick huddled against its mother's feathery body, a rival flashing bright plumes to intimidate. A youngster leaping clumsily from branch to branch, feathers catching air just enough to slow its fall. The forest clears, and you find yourself on a hillside. Below, a group of microraptors scurry across the branches of tall ginkgos. Their bodies are small, sleek, and covered in feathers. Black feathers that shimmer with a metallic blue sheen when the light hits. And not just wings. Feathers sprout from arms, legs, and tail, turning them into four-winged gliders. One leaps, spreading its limbs, and drifts between trees. Not quite flying, but not nearly falling either. It lands clumsily, skids along bark, then launches again, chirping sharply. Mainstream fact: Microraptor, discovered in Liaoning, had fully feathered arms and legs, making it one of the earliest known gliding dinosaurs. Fossils even preserve the black, iridescent sheen of its feathers, like modern crows. You watch as the group hunts, darting after dragonflies and small lizards. One pins its prey, feathers bristling, then tears it apart with sharp teeth. It is both delicate and deadly, proof that feathers do not weaken, but empower. Quirky anecdote: a fossilized microraptor once revealed the bones of a fish in its stomach, proof that it could hunt both in forests and near water. Imagine such a creature gliding over a pond, feathers glittering, before plunging claws first into the shallows to snatch a fish. You climb farther uphill, and the canopy opens to sky. Suddenly, you hear a screech overhead, sharper, wilder. A shape arcs across the air, wings beating with practiced rhythm. Not a pterosaur. Its feathers catch the light, each stroke measured. It lands clumsily on a branch, claws scraping bark. This is no glider, no half measure. It is Archaeopteryx, one of the first true birds. Its feathers spread in full symmetry, flight ready, its long, bony tail still reminding you of its dinosaur heritage. Mainstream fact: Archaeopteryx, discovered in 1861, is often called the first bird. It combined reptilian traits, teeth, claws on wings, a long bony tail, with fully developed flight feathers, making it a key link between dinosaurs and modern birds. It ruffles its feathers, then launches again, flapping harder than the microraptor, wings pushing air with steady power. It soars briefly, then dips, landing awkwardly, balancing with its tail. You watch it preen, nibbling at feathers, aligning each barb into place. Even in this ancient forest, the instinct for grooming is already alive. Scholarly uncertainty persists. Was Archaeopteryx a strong flyer or merely a glider? Its feathers suggest true flight, yet its breastbone lacked the keel that anchors strong flying muscles in modern birds. Perhaps it could fly short distances, flapping from tree to tree, but never mastering the long, soaring journeys of later birds. The sun lowers, casting amber light through feathers glowing gold. You feel the world shifting, subtly but profoundly. Dinosaurs still roar in valleys, still crush ferns beneath massive feet, still hunt with jaws that could shatter bone. Yet in the trees, in the air, something new hums. Feathers shimmer, wings spread, calls chirp. A quiet revolution of flight and color has begun. Quirky reflection: some paleontologists believe certain feathered dinosaurs may have displayed plumage with patterns as intricate as those of pheasants or parrots. Imagine standing in the forest at dawn, watching a rival pair of raptors display in radiant bursts of orange, red, and violet. A dance of fire and feathers, unseen for 100 million years, flickering in your imagination. Night falls, and the forest cools. The feathered ones huddle together, fluffing themselves for warmth, wings wrapping around bodies. The sound of their chirps softens into whispers, blending with the deeper rumble of distant predators. You lie back in the grass, a stray feather drifting down onto your chest. You hold it lightly, feeling the fragile vein, knowing it carries the promise of flight, the promise of song, the promise of a future where wings will rule the skies long after claws fade. And as you drift into sleep, the feather slips from your fingers, carried by the night breeze. It dances upward, caught in starlight, vanishing into darkness. Just as the first sparks of fire sometimes drift from embers, small but unstoppable, lighting the path forward. The air is heavy, dense with summer heat. The Cretaceous world is at its height, lush with flowering plants, buzzing with insects, ringing with the calls of hadrosaurs across the plains. Yet something in the silence between those calls tells you that danger is never far. Predators cast long shadows here, shadows that stretch over every grazing herd and every quiet valley. The most famous among them waits just beyond the horizon. The tyrant lizards. You step out from the trees and see a herd of Edmontosaurus grazing, their duckbills sweeping low grasses and blossoms. Calves play near the edge of the group, splashing at the edge of a stream, their squeaks high and bright. Adults raise their heads every few minutes, nostrils flaring, eyes scanning the forest line. Their caution is not paranoia. Something out there is watching them. The undergrowth stirs. A shape steps forward. First, the sound. A deep exhale, almost a sigh. Then the sight. Jaws longer than your outstretched arms, teeth glinting like daggers, eyes golden and steady. The ground seems to tilt under its weight. Tyrannosaurus Rex. Mainstream fact. T-Rex lived about 68 to 66 million years ago in what is now North America. At over 40 feet long and weighing up to 9 tons, it was one of the largest terrestrial predators in history. Its bite force, estimated at more than 12,000 pounds, could crush bone. You freeze. It steps forward, each movement measured, balanced. Its tail sways gently, counterweight to its massive skull. Its arms are tiny, yes, but its body is a fortress of muscle, built to run in short bursts, built to kill in one bite. You know instantly you wouldn't last a second in its presence. Quirky detail. Some fossilized bones of hadrosaurs and ceratopsians show not just teeth marks from T-Rex, but signs of healing. That means the great predator sometimes failed. Its prey escaped, limping but alive. Imagine a scarred Triceratops living years longer, carrying the story of a tyrant's failed hunt etched across its bones. The herd senses danger. Calls rise in alarm, calves squealing, adults bellowing. The T-Rex tenses, muscles rippling under pebbled skin, then charges. Dust explodes beneath its feet, each stride shaking the ground. The hadrosaurs scatter, the plain suddenly chaos. Bodies crashing, tails lashing, water splashing into the air. You duck as one Edmontosaurus bolts past, the scent of crushed flowers and panic heavy in the air. The predator lunges, jaws closing around the flank of a slower adult. The sound is terrible. Bones snapping, flesh tearing but brief. The herd flees, the plain empties, leaving only the tyrant standing over its kill, breath steaming in the cooling dusk. You crouch low, watching as it feeds, tearing flesh in ragged strips, swallowing chunks whole. The echoes of its growls carry for miles. Scholarly uncertainty lingers even in this iconic scene. Was T-Rex primarily a hunter or a scavenger? Some paleontologists once argued it may have relied on carrion, using its keen sense of smell to locate carcasses from miles away. Others point to evidence of active hunting, healed bite marks on prey, strong legs for bursts of speed. Standing here, you realize it doesn't matter. The tyrant is both. Hunter when it wishes, scavenger when it pleases. Master of both life and death. As night falls, You notice movement in the shadows. Smaller tyrant cousins, like Albertosaurus and Daspletosaurus, stalk their own ranges, lighter, swifter, still formidable. They hunt hadrosaurs in packs, circling like wolves, driving prey into ambushes. The darkness echoes with their calls, shorter, sharper than the deep rumble of T-Rex. The land feels crowded with predators, each adapted to different niches, each thriving under the flowering world. Quirky anecdote. Fossil trackways from Canada show multiple Albertosaurus moving together, suggesting coordinated group behavior. Imagine them trotting in formation, heads swaying, eyes scanning, their footsteps rhythmically beating like a prehistoric drumline. Whether truly cooperative hunters or merely opportunists, the image lingers. The moon rises. You hear distant rumbles. Herds of ceratopsians shifting in the dark, horns clashing softly as they circle for defense. You picture the eternal duel of tyrants and armored prey, scars crossing both sides, neither ever gaining permanent victory. The predators grow stronger, the herbivores grow tougher. Evolution plays its endless chess game, move by move, across millions of years. By dawn, the world is quiet again. The carcass of yesterday's kill lies torn, ribs gleaming under the sun. A cloud of scavengers, small feathered raptors, primitive birds, even mammals, scuttle in to pick the remains. Nothing is wasted here. The tyrant may rule the hunt, but the cycle of life feeds all. You sit in the grass, dew soaking your skin, and watch the plain breathe again. Flowers reopen, insects buzz. Hadrosaurs return cautiously to graze. The shadows of the tyrant still stretch across the land, but life endures around them, adapting, persisting. Scholarly uncertainty persists even in their appearance. Were tyrannosaurs scaly, feathered, or both? Fossil skin impressions show scales on some parts, but their ancestry suggests feathers might have covered juveniles or smaller species. You imagine a young T-Rex covered in fuzz, growing into a giant with scales shimmering in sunlight, a creature halfway between reptile and bird. The truth is lost in fragments, yet the possibilities make the shadows even richer as evening falls once more. You hear a final roar in the distance, deep, resonant, shaking air and earth alike. It is not just a call to prey. It is a declaration, a reminder that in this age, the tyrants rule the shadows. You lie down in the tall grass, lulled by the rhythmic calls of hadrosaurs in the distance, the hum of insects all around. Your heart slows, and the roar fades to a murmur in memory. The shadow stretches long, but you are safe for now, drifting into sleep under the watch of tyrants who will never know you are here. You wake to cold. The air stings your nose, crisp and sharp, and when you exhale, the mist lingers. Around you, the world is not the steaming jungle or flowered plain you've grown used to, but a forest of hardy conifers and ferns dusted with frost. The sun sits low on the horizon, weak and pale, as though uncertain whether to rise. This is the polar world of the Cretaceous, far from the equator, where days stretch into endless summer light and nights fold into months of darkness. You walk through the forest quietly, crunching frost beneath your steps. The ground is uneven, pocked with roots and mounds, streams frozen at the edges. You expect silence, but the forest is alive. A herd of small ornithopods moves between the trees, their bodies feathered with down, their heads bobbing as they nibble low shrubs. They pause to watch you, eyes bright, breath steaming in the chill. These are polar dinosaurs, creatures that adapted not just to predators, but to long winters and short growing seasons. Mainstream fact: dinosaurs lived in polar regions during the Cretaceous, with fossils found in what are now Antarctica and Alaska. Species like Leia thrived in these environments, enduring months of near darkness, One approaches closer, its tail long and stiff, its body only waist high. Its eyes are enormous, reflecting the dim light, pupils wide. It blinks, then chirps softly before darting back to the group. You realize those large eyes are an adaptation, perfect for gathering light during long polar nights. Quirky detail. Dinosaur, discovered in Australia, had such unusually large eye sockets that paleontologists nicknamed it the owl dinosaur. Imagine herds moving silently through moonlit forests, their eyes glowing faintly like lanterns. You continue deeper, and the cold intensifies. The trees grow sparser, the wind sharper. Snowflakes drift softly, melting on your skin. And then you see them, larger figures moving along the riverbank. Cryolophosaurus, a predator of the Antarctic early Jurassic, its skull crowned by a peculiar crest shaped almost like a wave or pompadour. It moves slowly, muscles rippling under its scaly hide, breath misting as it exhales. Its eyes fix on a group of small herbivores huddled in the snow. It lunges, jaws snapping, scattering the herd into the trees. The crest glints briefly before the forest swallows it whole. Mainstream fact: Cryolophosaurus lived in Antarctica about 190 million years ago. And despite the cold, the region then was forested and hospitable enough to support large predators. Its flamboyant crest is one of the most distinctive among theropods. Scholarly uncertainty remains about how dinosaurs endured the extremes. Did they migrate seasonally, following the light? Or did they stay year-round, adapting to the dark winters? Fossil evidence of young dinosaurs in polar regions suggests many stayed, perhaps insulated by feathers, perhaps huddling in groups. Standing here, watching them move through frost, you believe they were not mere visitors. They were residents. The sky darkens earlier here. By afternoon, stars already pierce the twilight. The herd of Dinosaur huddles together, fluffing their downy coats, their breath clouding in rhythm. They chirp softly, a chorus of reassurance in the cold. Above, auroras ripple, green and violet ribbons streaming across the sky. The dinosaurs lift their heads, eyes wide, as if listening to the silent music of the lights. You stand in awe, feeling the cold in your bones, the hum of the earth beneath your feet. Quirky anecdote. Some paleontologists speculate that polar dinosaurs may have dug burrows or nested in sheltered dens to survive the darkest months, much like modern Arctic animals. Imagine stumbling on a tunnel entrance, brushing frost aside, and seeing the faint glow of eyes peering back from underground. As you climb a ridge, the wind howls stronger. You look down into a valley blanketed with mist, where larger dinosaurs roam, herds of hadrosaurs, their feathers thicker than those in warmer lands, grazing on conifers and hardy shrubs. They move slowly, conserving energy, tails dragging faint trails in snow. Calves huddle beneath adults, shielded from wind. Predators stalk here too, their calls echoing faintly. But hunts are harder, energy scarce. Every kill must last. Scholarly uncertainty touches their diets. What did herbivores eat when winter cloaked the land for months? Some argue they gnawed on bark and twigs, scraping survival from frozen forests. Others believe they stored fat, enduring lean times like bears. Fossilized teeth show heavy wear, but the exact meals of polar winters remain a mystery. Night deepens. You sit by a frozen stream, stars reflecting faintly in the ice. Around you, the forest hums quietly. Distant calls, soft chirps, the crunch of snow beneath unseen feet. You wrap your arms around yourself and realize dinosaurs were not creatures of only warm jungles and sunlit plains. They endured the poles too, where endurance mattered more than size. where darkness stretched long and life bent itself into shapes both strange and beautiful. You tilt your head back to watch the aurora again, green light rippling like curtains in the sky. The dinosaurs move beneath it, their shadows blending with the glowing night. And you drift into sleep with the hum of wind in your ears, comforted by the knowledge that even here, at the edge of survival, life found a way. The ocean stretches wide, its waves lapping endlessly against rocky coasts. But scattered across this sea are pockets of land, fragments of continents, broken pieces of Gondwana and Laurasia, drifting slowly apart. You set foot on one of these islands, and instantly you know this is no ordinary landscape. Evolution here has taken its own strange path, shaping creatures that look familiar, yet not quite. Welcome to the Islands of Mystery, where the rules bend and dinosaurs adapt in surprising ways. The air is humid, heavy with salt, and the forest rises dense and close. Palm-like ferns crowd the understory, their fronds dripping with moisture. The trees are smaller than those of the great mainland forests, but beneath them move dinosaurs just as strange. A small ornithopod darts past, barely the size of a goat. Its legs pump quickly, its tail stiff for balance. It looks like a scaled-down version of the giants you've seen elsewhere. You blink in disbelief. This is an island dwarf. Mainstream fact. On islands, some dinosaur species evolved to be much smaller than their mainland relatives, a phenomenon called island dwarfism. Fossils from Hatzeg Island in what is now Romania show sauropods that grew only to the size of modern horses, far smaller than their colossal cousins. You wander deeper, and there they are. Sauropods, yes, but not the thunderous giants you expect. Instead of towering necks scraping the sky, these are modest creatures, barely taller than you, their long tails swaying behind them like whips. They graze on low shrubs, moving delicately between trees, their footsteps barely stirring the ground. They carry the same shape as their titanic ancestors, but shrunk by the island's limited resources. Quirky detail. Fossil evidence suggests some of these dwarf sauropods, like Megarosaurus, may have been no bigger than a pony. Imagine brushing its side with your hand, feeling the same scaly hide that once belonged to a creature the size of a building. Here, on an island, giants become gentle shadows of themselves. Scholarly uncertainty lingers. Were these truly separate dwarf species, evolved over generations, or were they juveniles mistaken for adults? Most evidence suggests island dwarfism, but debates continue, each fossil bone weighed for clues. You stand among them, and the question feels almost unanswerable, because in life, they simply are what they are. Survivors in a world of scarcity. The island holds other surprises. A rustle in the canopy, and you glimpse small predators leaping between branches. Feathered, sleek, no larger than house cats. Their eyes gleam as they chase insects through the undergrowth. On the mainland, such small hunters would risk being crushed beneath sauropod feet or devoured by tyrants. Here, they thrive, kings of their miniature forest. You reach a clearing where pterosaurs roost on jagged cliffs. They are smaller here too, wingspans barely wider than your arms. They squabble over nesting space, flapping and shrieking, their calls echoing down the coast. From below, the sea answers. The crash of waves, the hiss of spray. You watch one launch itself clumsily, wings catching a wind, before gliding over the bay, dipping its beak to snatch a fish. Mainstream fact. Islands often foster unique evolutionary experiments, where limited space and food pressure species to shrink, adapt, or fill odd niches. The Hatzeg Island ecosystem in the late Cretaceous produced not only dwarf sauropods, but also unique predatory and herbivorous species. Quirky anecdote. On Hatseg, paleontologists discovered remains of Balaur Bondoc, nicknamed the Stocky Dragon. It was a raptor-like dinosaur with two sickle claws on each foot instead of one, unlike its Velociraptor cousins. Imagine such a predator stalking through the island forest, short, muscular, with double talons flashing in the dim light. As night falls, you sit by a lagoon, the air buzzing with insects. Frogs croak in the shallows, their calls blending with the distant shrieks of pterosaurs. Above, stars scatter across the sky, mirrored in the water below. The island hums softly, smaller than the vast continents, but alive with its own rhythm. Dinosaurs here may be tiny compared to their mainland kin, but they are no less strange, no less wondrous. Scholarly uncertainty stretches over these ecosystems. How isolated were they truly? Did rising seas trap dinosaurs on shrinking lands? Or did these islands form archipelagos with creatures occasionally crossing between? Fossils give hints, but not certainty. Standing here, you imagine both. Waves sometimes separating, sometimes uniting, always shaping the possibilities of life. You close your eyes and listen. The forest rustles with dwarf sauropods moving like shadows. The canopy vibrates with feathered predators chasing insects. The cliffs echo with pterosaur cries. It feels like stepping into a miniature world, an echo of the greater one beyond the sea, yet unique, unrepeatable. The waves whisper against the shore, and you drift into sleep, rocked by the island's quiet song. You dream of small giants and double-clawed hunters, of worlds within worlds, where life finds a way not by growing larger, but by becoming just enough. The world feels restless. You notice it in the air, in the soil, in the uneasy quiet between the calls of dinosaurs. For millions of years, life has thrived. Giants roaming, flowers blooming, seas bursting with predators. But now the rhythm falters. The earth whispers of endings, subtle but undeniable. You walk across a Cretaceous plain, the ground dry and cracked despite the season. Flowers still dot the fields, but many wither early, their petals curling inward as though hiding from the sun. Herds of hadrosaurs graze, but their movements seem sluggish, their eyes wary. Even the sky feels heavier. The sunsets redder, the nights darker. Something is changing. Mainstream fact. Toward the end of the Cretaceous, massive volcanic eruptions in what is now India formed the Deccan Traps, one of the largest volcanic features on Earth. These eruptions released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, altering climate and ecosystems long before the asteroid struck. The horizon glows faintly some evenings, not with sunset, but with fire. You imagine volcanoes in distant lands spewing ash high into the atmosphere, blotting sunlight, darkening skies. Winds carry the particles across continents, dimming photosynthesis, stressing plants, thinning food chains. Dinosaurs still live, still roar, still graze, but survival feels tighter now. The balance more fragile, quirky detail. Some fossilized tree rings from this period show signs of stunted growth, as though years passed with shortened seasons, cooler summers, harsher winters. Imagine touching a petrified trunk and tracing the rings with your finger, wider, wider, then suddenly narrow, a silent record of years when life itself held its breath. Scholarly uncertainty lingers. Did the Deccan Traps alone begin the decline, softening ecosystems for collapse? Or did life remain stable until the asteroid's sudden blow? Some paleontologists argue that dinosaurs were already stressed, their diversity waning. Others insist they were still flourishing, cut short in their prime. The fossils offer both stories, and no single truth. You travel north, into a forest where ceratopsians graze among conifers. They lift their heads often, horns gleaming, frills rising like shields. But even here, something feels off. The plants grow thinner, ferns less abundant, patches of bare ground spreading where lush undergrowth once thrived. The herbivores eat, but with effort, moving farther each day to find enough. Predators follow, leaner, hungrier, eyes sharper. You sit by a riverbank, watching the water flow sluggish and brown, carrying ash and silt. A group of small feathered dinosaurs scuttle past, chirping nervously. They dart into burrows at the slightest sound, their instincts tuned to danger. The world feels watchful, as though waiting for a storm that never quite breaks. Mainstream fact: sea levels fluctuated dramatically during the late Cretaceous. At times, shallow inland seas spread across North America and Europe, creating warm, swampy habitats. But as tectonic shifts continued, coastlines receded, climates shifted, and ecosystems fragmented. Quirky anecdote: fossils from these inland seas include entire schools of fish preserved in ash, their bodies frozen mid-swim, suggesting sudden volcanic events poisoned waters. You imagine standing by a shoreline when fish begin to thrash, gasping as invisible toxins creep through the waves. As night falls, you gaze up at the stars. They seem brighter, sharper, as though the sky itself has cleared to reveal more. But the clarity feels ominous. Somewhere out there, beyond those stars, a rock is already moving. It has no mind, no malice. It simply travels, drawn by gravity, destined to intersect with Earth. You shiver, though the night is warm. Scholarly uncertainty still debates timing. Did the asteroid strike at the very peak of volcanic upheaval, compounding disaster? Or did one follow the other in unlucky succession? Was it coincidence or inevitability? You lie back in the grass, hearing the faint rustle of hadrosaurs nearby, and wonder if any living creature sensed the end, not as a meteor in the sky, but as unease in the earth beneath their feet. Dawn comes with silence. You rise and walk across the plain, noticing more absences than presences. Fewer calls, fewer tracks, fewer blossoms. Yet life persists stubbornly. A Triceratops herd marches past, horns gleaming in the sun. A Tyrannosaurus roars from a hilltop, shaking the air. Pterosaurs wheel in the sky, wings catching morning light. They are still magnificent, still dominant. But their shadows feel longer now, stretched thin by time. You rest beneath a flowering tree, its blossoms falling one by one, drifting down to the soil. You catch one in your hand and hold it gently. Its beauty is undeniable, fragile yet perfect. You realize you are holding both a triumph of evolution and a fleeting miracle, a bloom that will not last. The world around you is the same. Dinosaurs still thunder across plains, flowers still spread color, seas still churn with reptiles. Yet the ground trembles faintly, the air tastes faintly bitter, the horizon glows faintly red. These are not endings yet, but preludes, soft warnings, whispered reminders that nothing, not even the mightiest, endures forever. And as you close your eyes, the last sound you hear is the distant call of a hadrosaur, low and mournful, echoing across an empty plain. The sound carries far, but fades quickly, lost to the weight of silence. The end is not here yet, but it is coming. The morning arrives golden, as though nothing has changed. The air is warm, the flowers open, insects buzz, and herds graze lazily across the plains. The sky is impossibly blue, stretching from horizon to horizon, a perfect dome. If you didn't know what was coming, you might think this day was like any other. And for the dinosaurs around you, the hadrosaurs, the Triceratops, the great Tyrannosaurus that stalks the shadows, it is They do not know. You walk slowly among them, taking in every detail. The shimmer of scales, the rustle of feathers, the flash of horns. The world feels alive, thriving, unstoppable. But then you notice the horizon, faint at first, almost invisible. A point of light. It grows brighter, steady, then dazzling, as though a new star has pierced the sky. Mainstream fact. Around 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid, about 6 miles wide, struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating the Chicxulub crater and triggering one of the most devastating extinctions in Earth's history. The light grows until it outshines the sun, streaking across the heavens with a trail of fire. Dinosaurs lift their heads, eyes wide, calls echoing in confusion. Herds shift uneasily. Predators pause mid-hunt, the entire world looking upward together. And then, the impact. You do not hear it at first. You feel it. The ground shudders violently, a tremor racing through soil and stone. Trees whip as though caught in a hurricane. A moment later, the sound arrives. A thunderclap so vast it rattles your bones, rolling endlessly, a sky-tearing roar. Birds explode into flight. Pterosaurs scream. Herds stampede in terror. The world is noise and chaos. Quirky detail. Fossil evidence shows tiny glass-like beads, called tektites, scattered across the globe from the impact. These droplets of molten rock rain down like glittering hail, falling into lakes, rivers, and forests. Imagine looking up after the shock and seeing the sky shimmer with falling jewels. Deadly, beautiful sparks, born of destruction. The shockwave tears forests flat. A wall of air, faster than sound, slams across plains, snapping conifers, toppling cycads, hurling creatures like leaves. Herds scatter in blind panic, their calls lost in the wind. Dust and ash billow upward, spreading across the atmosphere, dimming the sun. The perfect blue sky turns gray, then black, as though night has fallen at noon. Scholarly uncertainty remains about the exact sequence. How quickly firestorms ignited, how long darkness lasted, how cold the world became. Some models suggest global wildfires swept across continents, sparked by falling debris. Others believe smoke and ash choked skies for months, blocking sunlight, collapsing food chains. Standing here, you feel both. Forests burning in the distance, shadows spreading as daylight fades. The hours blur. The asteroid's aftershocks ripple outward, seas heaving into tsunamis taller than mountains, crashing against coasts, sweeping inland. You hear the roar of water even here, far from the shore, as rivers flood and valleys drown. Volcanoes erupt in sympathy, spewing more ash, more fire, more poison. The air is thick, choking, heavy with the scent of sulfur and smoke. Dinosaurs stumble blindly, eyes wide, lungs gasping. Some collapse where they stand, overcome by heat and ash. Others flee endlessly, but there is nowhere to go. Even the mighty Tyrannosaurus roars helplessly at the sky, as though trying to fight the heavens themselves. Mainstream fact. In the aftermath, about 75% of all species on Earth went extinct, including all non-avian dinosaurs. Only smaller creatures, birds, mammals, reptiles, and insects, found ways to survive. You notice them even now. In the chaos, small feathered dinosaurs scuttle into burrows. Mammals hide in cracks and dens, clutching their young. Birds lift off, their wings beating desperately, scattering across the darkened sky. Life shrinks itself, pulling inward, clinging to whatever refuge it can. Quirky anecdote. Some scientists believe seeds preserved in soil allowed plants to rebound after the catastrophe. While towering forests collapsed, small seeds endured, waiting in silence. Imagine the earth holding its breath. Tiny packets of life buried just beneath the ash, ready to sprout when the light returned. The days after are endless night. Ash clouds choke the atmosphere, blotting out sunlight. The temperature plummets. Plants wither. Food chains collapse. Herbivores starve. Predators follow. The great herds dwindling to nothing. The once vibrant calls of hadrosaurs fall silent. The horns of Triceratops gleam no more. The tyrant shadows fade, and yet, in the silence, life waits. In burrows, in seeds, in tiny beating hearts. Scholarly uncertainty persists in the recovery. How long did the darkness last? Years? Decades? Some argue sunlight returned within months. Others suggest cold gripped the earth for far longer. The fossils cannot answer perfectly, but you know that eventually, slowly, green returns. The earth heals, birds sing, mammals stretch and grow, and the age of dinosaurs, magnificent and long, becomes memory. You stand in the ruins, ash crunching beneath your feet, air thick with smoke. You close your eyes and breathe slowly. You feel grief for what is gone, awe for what endured, and wonder at the resilience of life. Because even as the last great dinosaur falls, its echoes remain. In the beating wings of sparrows, in the songs of robins, in the hungry eyes of hawks. The line never truly ended. It changed, it shrank, it adapted, but it survived. The dinosaurs live on, not in thunderous herds, but in the everyday flutter of feathers against the morning sky. You lie down on the cooling earth, ash soft beneath your body. The stars appear faintly through thinning smoke. For the first time in millions of years, the night belongs to silence. You close your eyes, listening to nothing but your own breath, and let the story of the dinosaurs settle gently into memory. Soft wind down, 300 words. Now the noise is gone. The roar of predators, the thunder of herds, the cries of the sky kings, all faded. What remains is quiet. The earth rests, its fires cooling, its dust slowly settling. You can almost feel the planet exhale, weary but enduring. The fields are empty, the forests thin, but the air carries promise. Seeds sleep beneath the ash, tiny sparks of green. In burrows, small creatures dream, their hearts beating steadily in the dark. On branches, fragile wings tremble, holding the memory of giants. The age of dinosaurs is over, but life is not. You close your eyes and let the silence wrap around you. No fear now, no rushing footsteps, no trembling earth. Only stillness, only rest. The echoes of thunder fade into whispers, then into nothing. And in that nothing, you find peace. The peace of endings and of beginnings. The dinosaurs are gone, but the world hums on, ready to bloom again. So breathe deeply. Feel your chest rise and fall, steady, calm. The story is finished, but the earth continues. You are safe, you are warm, and you are carried by history's quiet embrace. Let sleep take you gently as the last echoes fade.